Hello, viewers. Welcome once again to Nelly's TV. And as usual, we bring you real enlightenment here through authentic news and history analysis. We want you to know your history, more especially as an African youth. You need to know your history so you can use your head correctly and stop believing all the lies and propaganda they garbage into your brain from Western media. Okay, you see, we are going to be discussing a very important topic today. You may ask yourself, how important it is. No, it is not necessarily just about today's topic, but about the way the the powers that be, the Western media, the distorted history has manipulated people's brain, more especially the youths of Africa, and they are beginning to believe all these lies as if they are true, and the thing affects the way they reason also. Okay, now when we were growing up, those days when they were still teaching social studies and history in the schools, in the contraption known as Nigeria, in the primary school, they taught us social studies, and part of the things we learned was that River Niger was discovered by a man called Mungo Park. Who was Mungo Park, by the way? Mungo Park wasn't a Nigerian, he wasn't an African, he was a white man. And we are going to be looking at the history, the real truth behind all the garbages they garbaged into our head those days, our young, innocent brain those days. And we believed all these things, of course, because we didn't have any alternative. But as time went on and we began to reason as adults, we saw that all those things are just lies from the pit of hell, just to manipulate you, make you think that you as an African, you are worth nothing. It is only a white man that will come all the way from wherever, how many thousand kilometers away, and come and begin to discover things at the backyard of your father's house. And then just because he put it down on the paper, he becomes the champion. He becomes the award winner or whatever thing they want to paint him. And they now make you look like you are just one Dundee, one non-entity that doesn't even know how to do anything at all. You see, that's what we have been seeing. Okay, so let's look at Mungo Park. First of all, we are going to be looking at the image of the man called Mungo Park. You can see him on your screen right here. Okay, so look at Mungo Park, this guy here. And who was Mungo Park? Let's read a little about him. Mungo Park was a Scottish explorer of West Africa. You know, when these white guys come to African space, they call themselves explorers. But when an African goes to their space, they call him an illegal immigrant and look for a way to arrest him and maybe throw him into prison or deport him with ignominy because he has violated some kind of rule. But they don't violate any rule in our space, even when they come without visa. That is the manipulation we are talking about. And our duty here is to enlighten you, to know history, to understand the manipulation that is going on behind, and begin to use your head, begin to use your brain. Unfortunately, our elders don't even know much about this manipulation. Some of them know, but because of greed and selfishness of what they stand to benefit, they continue to dance to the tune of these their colonial masters and continue to wallow in the forest of ignorance and foolishness. Okay, that should not be the portion of you present day African youth. We should wake up and use our senses. They called him a Scottish explorer. After an exploration of the upper Niger River around 1796, he wrote a popular and influential travel book titled Travels in the Interior Districts of Africa, in which he theorized the Niger and Congo, that he theorized the Niger and Congo merged to become the same river, though it was later proven that there are different rivers. So he wrote all those things, okay? And because of that, they, you know, they gave it to him as the one who discovered River Niger. We shall see later. He was spied during a second expedition, having successfully traveled about two-thirds of the way down the Niger. Okay, that is from Wikipedia, right? Now, for those of you who don't know Nigeria very well, let me show you a bit. You saw the map earlier. I will show it again to you. So this is the map of Nigeria, the contraption called Nigeria. And Nigeria has two very prominent rivers. One is River Niger. You can see my mouse this side, okay? On the western side of Nigeria, you have River Niger. Then on the eastern side of Nigeria, you can see my mouse. That is River Benue, and they meet somewhere called Lokoja around here, and then go um, down to the southern part of Nigeria, up to Warri, rivers, and so on and so forth. So we're not going to be talking about that. Our interest is on what happened on this River Niger. Okay, so now this is the river which they claim that Mungo Park discovered. The river they claim that Mungo Park discovered. So now let's go into history and enlightenment. First of all, we're going to be looking at what influenced settlement, ancient settlement, because people were just living wherever they found themselves. After some time, they will decide to move. So why did people move? Why were people moving? Why were people settling wherever they wanted to settle? What were the factors that made them to move from one place to settle in another place? Look at it right here. So read along. Ancient settlements were attracted to locations offering readily available resources such as water. Can you see that? Water was one of the things that attracted people to settle around an area. Next was fertile land for agriculture. Next was strategic advantages like defensive positions, and access to transportation routes. The availability of food and fuel and the potential for economic development were also crucial factors. There is a link here if you care to read where the information actually comes from. So it's not, I didn't write it, I'm not just garbaging out anything. This is history written. Now, the article goes ahead to explain these factors one after the other, and we are going to be concentrating on water. So what about water? Access to rivers, lakes, and springs provided essential water for drinking, irrigation, and transportation. So people needed water to survive. You need water to drink. In fact, according to science, your body is made up of at least 70% of water. So if you lack water, if you don't drink water, you're going to die. All right? You're going to your early grave. You can stay without food for many days, but water, no. 3 days, you are already fainting. So that was one of the factors that drew people to settle in places. And so there was a very large water body like River Niger, and somebody is trying to tell me that nobody lived around the bank of the river until one white man from Scotland came all the way and discovered that there was a river there. Is that what they are trying to tell me? Naturally, people lived beside water bodies. People lived at the banks of rivers. People lived at the banks of streams. People lived at the banks of seas and oceans. Those were the first places that people settled before the settlement continued to advance into the hinterland. And somebody just wakes up and tells me because he entered a boat and drove a long distance, then he was the one that discovered that there was water here, there. So those guys living around the banks of the river, what were they drinking? You see the manipulation that these people operate with, and which you must resist as a normal human being. Now you may ask yourself, but how sure are you that actually people were living there? Ah, okay, good. So we are going to be looking at another documentation, though the presentation of this paper is very poor, very, very poor. It's not good to the eyes. Just to further strengthen my argument, factors, look at it up here, factors affecting location of settlements. One of them is what? Water supply. Look at it right here. It says settlements need water. They often locate on wet point sites for this. Settlements built away from rivers and water supplies to avoid flooding are located at dry point sites, but they are located near water bodies, okay, because people need water to survive. So, regions close to water bodies were first occupied before regions that were very far from water bodies. And so it is difficult. In fact, it doesn't make sense to claim that as at the time that this guy Mungo Park came to that part of Nigeria where it's known as Nigeria today, nobody was living at the bank of the river. Let's look at the article again. The article says that he came around 1796. Okay, he came around 1796. Take note of this date, this year, 1796. Now, and how did Mungo Park end? How did his life end? This is an article that talks about his end. It says, Park sailed down the Niger past Timbuktu. Timbuktu is in Mali, to the village of Busa. Busa is in the present-day Nigeria, located in what will become Nigeria. Like I said earlier, where the indigenous attempted to stop his progress. I think they wanted to write the indigens, where the indigens attempted to stop his progress. Did you hear that? That they were indigens already living in Busa, Busa, which is one of the towns that River Niger passed in Nigeria. Indigens were already trying to stop his progress. So where were those indigens living if there was nobody there before Mungo Park came? And are you trying to tell me that the indigens were just living without knowing that there was a river, yet they knew when Mungo Park wanted to pass? You see, these lies have got to stop. People should begin to use their brain, their senses, and kick against this Western manipulation and propaganda and lies they are garbaging into our eyes, into our brains rather. Every good thing comes from them, but every bad thing comes from you as an African. That is arrant nonsense. You don't believe it anymore, okay? If you are very conversant with all these Western media, BBC, CNN, and the rest of them, you know that these guys, they can lie from the pit of hell. Their history is serious lies. Okay? We have to make our own history. We have to tell our own story and stop believing these are trash. And the article goes ahead to say, during efforts to escape, the Joliba had capsized in Narobusa Rapids. and Park and his companions had drowned. That was how he ended. So Joliba was another name for River Niger. Okay, so there is a kind of that place was a dangerous place that capsized somehow, and they didn't know. So he was running away from the indigenes of Busa, and then they capsized together with the River Niger. So who were these indigenes and where were they living? Does it mean they never knew that there was a river passing through their village? Yet they knew when Mungo Park and his companions were passing. This is lie. Lie number one. You can see it with your own eyes. Okay, let's continue. I told you to take note of the year. Once again, this year, 1796. That was when Mungo Park came to River Niger. We are going to be looking at how old is Busa, the town called Busa in Nigeria. This article says the original Busa village in Nigeria, now submerged under Kenji Lake, was part of the Borgu Kingdom, which is believed to have been established in the 15th century, men and brethren, 15th century. When is 15th century? 15th century is 1400, 1401, 1402, and 14 all that and all that and all that. That is what is meant by 15th century. Because when we say century, century is 1 year ahead of the actual year. Like we are in 21st century now, but we are reading 2025. Okay? 2024, 2023, but it is called 21st century. So 15th century means 1400, 14 whatever. That was when Busa village was formed. That was when people settled in this village called Busa in Nigeria. Look at it, read it yourself. Busa village in Nigeria. 14 something, 14 something. But Mungo Park came there in 1796, almost 300 years later, 300 years after the settlement started existing. And he came up because he wrote something down on the paper to tell us that he discovered River Niger. What a lie. Busa served as the traditional capital of Borgu, the current town. The current New Busa is a resettlement built after the Kenji Lake was created in 1968. This one is just a recent one. That's why they called it New Busa. Okay, with the construction of the Kenji Dam. So, people, just sit back and now ask yourself. So, all these things we've been hearing right from time that Mungo Park discovered River Niger, discovered River Niger. How come that the story is seemingly different today? You can see it with your eyes, you can read it, it's still on the screen. So what are we trying to say? The essence of this channel is to bring those hidden history, the history that they have refused to tell you in the schools, the things that they have refused to teach you in the school. In fact, today in Nigeria, there is nothing like history anymore. It was Obasanjo who stopped and removed history from the curriculum of Nigeria. And can you imagine such a place where history is not taught? I have never seen such a country. In every other country in the world today, they teach their children their history, including Israel that has fought several battles. They teach their children their history. So they know how they came all the way until they got to where they are today. In fact, if you even go to some other countries as a foreigner and you want to naturalize, they will force you to learn their history. So in Nigeria, what is the history that we teach our children? The next thing you hear is, and the white man came. That is the beginning of Nigeria's history. And the white man came and amalgamated the northern and southern protectorate. And the white man came and discovered River Niger. And the white man came and formed whatever, whatever. And you see that those white men will just come and give names after their own name and use their own name to overshadow the original name of villages. That's why you have Port Harcourt today instead of Iwosha. That's why the Ogo in Enugu was changed to AWGU. Okay? That's why Enugu is ENUGU instead of Elugu. Instead of Elugu, the top of a hill. They keep garbaging this rubbish into people's head, and people keep accepting them because it comes from a white man. Men and brethren, it is time we begin to believe in ourselves and decolonize our head, wash out all these manipulations from our head and begin to use our right senses. So you've seen it today. You can now ask yourself, did Mungo Park really discover River Niger? I would like you to put down your answer in the comment section or give your opinion either for or against what you have seen. So with that, we have come to the end of today's news, and I hope to see you very soon in our next video, when we will come again with another analysis of either news or history that you need to know. Thank you for watching, and bye.